So in this previous video, we were exploring making platforms move using the animation panel and animation tracks, but those just happen automatically. You really had no control over them once you started them moving. What if you wanted to make those things move, but only when an interaction happened between two different components in your game, like a player and the platform? So in the demo game behind me, I built two examples of animations that only happen when the player interacts with an object. I've also started to hand draw more of the background and objects in my game because it's more fun when I can add my own drawings. First, a platform taking you to the next level that I plan to build. Why is Yoshi there? Changing color and scale. But really, if I can link any event with the entire power of the Godot animation panel, I have all kinds of cool options I can do way beyond just moving a platform or changing the size of a character. Normally, when making a game in Godot, to have that kind of interaction, you would need two things: signals and programming. The signals in Godot are just little broadcasters or shoutouts for different components in your game to announce that something has interacted with them. And then you can also use them for other components to listen for that interaction and then do something based on that. The do something part would be where you would write your programming. And GDScript, the coding language used in Godot, is a very powerful tool to have all kinds of interactivity in your game. And at some point, as you progress in your game making journey, you're going to want to learn GDScript. But for today, how can we have that interactivity without using GDScript? We're going to explore block coding in Godot. The first thing to do is to add block coding to our project. So if you look in the menu in the top where you have 2D, 3D, script, the button in the far right, Asset Library here, if I click on that, I have like a storefront for all these different tools that can help me make games. One of them will be the block coding. So if I search for block, here it is, block coding right here by Endless. If I click on that, and I click download and install. Awesome. Now if I go back to 2D, we don't see anything related to blocks yet. We just have to do one last step, which is to go up to the word project in the top left, go to project settings, click on plugins, and turn this block coding on. Now we have block coding. Okay, first I'm going to change the tile map here so that it feels like there's a transition to the next level. And then I'm going to add a new scene, which is just a platform that doesn't move or do animations yet. Then I'll add the block coding. Normally, that would be enough for a platform, but because I want this one to interact with the player, we're going to add an Area2D node and its own collision shape to this scene. Okay, what I've done with that is basically given this object like a second hitbox, and this only job of this Area2D and its collision shape, which I've put just above the actual collision shape of the ground, is it's going to be the thing that when the player hits, it has its own logic using block coding that announces that it has interacted with the player. Okay, so I've adjusted my tile map and I've built a platform and saved it as its own scene called Elevator. Now I'm going to build the animation track for the elevator to go up and over. Okay, so the first step, if we want this interaction to happen using block coding, will be to take the components that are going to be involved in the interaction, the player, the animator, and the elevator or the platform, and put them in groups and name those groups. And the components will use those names to talk to one another. So on the left here on the scene tree, I'm going to click on the player first. And I'm going to go, instead of to the inspector in the top right, I'm going to click on the word node, then groups, then plus. And I'm just going to put the player in a player group. Simple name. Turn on the global switch. Okay, now I'm going to go to the animation player and do the same thing. Except this will be in the animator group. Okay, and the last one, and I'm going to actually rename this because this is our elevator or our platform, and I'm going to place elevator in a group too, just in case. And do it the same way. Now, because the block coding or the block logic is going to take the place of where you would put a regular script using GDScript, then I need to attach the block coding to the objects that I want to either give instructions to or trigger some event. So in this case, I'm going to start with the animation player. I'm going to click on the animation player in the scene tree. And to get the block coding, you add it like you would any other node. So I would go to the plus sign. And I see here now I have block coding because I started to type the word block and I searched for it. So I'm going to create a block coding node on the animation player. It doesn't look like anything's changed, but let me drag up from the bottom. Awesome. So what do we need to do in the animation player? So all nodes in Godot do come with some pre-built behavior already in them. Like for example, you can see when you click on a node in your scene tree, you have all these options to edit in the inspector. But they also allow you to really extend and go beyond that with your own custom functionality. So when we use the blocks, we're going to do a little bit of that here. We have a whole palette or collection of different blocks we can use, but we're actually only going to use two, and I'll show you where they are now, and we can pull them onto this canvas and then put them together. So in the communication and methods category, we are going to grab a block called define method. You can just drag that onto the canvas. If you make a mistake and you grab another one, you can just drag it over to the collection again and it will disappear. The other one we need is right here under graphics and animation. And we're going to use this play animation button. Okay, so one easy way to think of what we're going to do now with these two blocks is essentially take the instructions or the recipe that comes with the animation player and we're going to add to it or spice it up a bit. So to add to the instructions, we're going to use this define method block, which allows us to give a name to and start to create the new set of instructions. I'm just going to call it go up because that's what we want this new recipe to do. And then the only thing it needs to do is really just go and play the animation that's in the animation player. Not this reset one though. I'm going to click the down arrow there and choose lift. And I'm going to play it forward, not backward. And that's it. Now we've added to the recipe or the instructions that come with the animation player. Okay, so next I want to give some instructions to the elevator. So I have elevator in the scene tree here, but I'm actually going to click on the movie icon clip that allows me to open just the elevator scene that I've saved in its own tab. Because remember, I asked you to add Area2D and CollisionShape to this particular platform, and that's because the blocks we need for this whole thing to understand that the player has interacted with it, they come with the Area2D node. And its collision shape, I need it to sit just on top of the actual hitbox or collision shape of the platform so that when the player jumps on it, it enters that area. So I'm going to go to Area2D, I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to add the block coding again. Okay, and the first block I need is also under communication methods, but it's one that wasn't there with the animation player, and it's when this node collides with something. I'm going to grab that and put it here. It's going to handle recognizing when the player collides. Just on its own, though, it's just saying when this Area2D node collides with something, anything, but we want it to be about the player. So I'm going to go to the logic conditionals category on the left, and I'm going to choose this top if block. And we're going to be a little bit smarter about this. So I'm going to put this here. And then I'm going to take this communication groups category and I'm going to grab this bottom block. And watch this. I'm going to place this where it says false. And then I'm going to take the word something here, click and drag a copy of it here. Now this here, these two blocks say when this node, this Area2D collides with something, if that something is in the group player, what do we want to happen? And what we want to do is use that go up method that we described in the animation player. So I'm going to go to communication methods, and instead of defining a new one, I'm going to do what's called call the method, which means start it or make it happen. So I'm going to call the method and place that here. And what was it called again? Go up. I think that's what we called it. Let me check. Right, go up. Okay, so I'll go back to Elevator. I have call method go up in the group Animator. That's where it is. Perfect. Let's see if this works. All right, I've got my guy here, and there's the platform I drew down below. Jump. Yes. The two things recognized each other, and the animation played just as I wanted. So I show you this moving platform happening only when the player jumps on it because that interactivity can actually unlock the whole animation player for you. So if you can have any kind of animation happen exactly when you want it to in a certain moment, you can kind of start to dream much bigger about your level or your game. Think about things I have on the screen here where I myself am just dreaming. You could have explosions. You could have a wall that gets destroyed or removed or disappears so that there's a hidden area behind it. And that only happens because the player gets near it or gets to a certain area in the level. Like maybe they flip a switch. You could have sound effects even because the animation player isn't just connected to one object. When you add an animation player to your main scene, it can do animation tracks for any component in your game. The enemies, the platforms, the music, you name it. And remember, the animation player also isn't limited to one track at a time. So if you wanted your platform to spin, change color, grow big or small, and play a sound effect, you could do all of that in one animation. And then with two blocks of code over here, just say play that animation. And the only other thing you have to remember is for those components is to teach them using this Area2D and this block code to listen or look for when they've interacted with or collided with another component of your game.